Welcome to 3D.sk, human photo reference for 3D artists and game developers. On this site you can find thousands of images, from studio photo reference to street photo reference. We also have a selection of animals on our site. We have some costumes, we have weapons, armor. We also have 3D scans of bodies and heads, clothing, animals, all the aforementioned above, and 3D maps and textures. So in this episode, we're going to be starting off in 3ds Max, and we're going to be creating the eyeball to be able to use in ZBrush. So the first thing I want to do is just maximize the viewport. And I've got some sizes off the internet of the human eye. So the average diameter of the eyeball is usually between 21 to 25, so I'm probably going to go with 24. So if we just do keyboard entry, let's just go radius 24. Let's make sure we are in millimeters first. So if I just go to customize, unit setup, go metric, millimeters, and millimeters here. Then we can go 24 millimeters and we can create. So this is real world scale of someone's eyeball. It usually ranges between 21 and 24, but we're just going to use 24 for this one. And then for the iris, generally is between 11 and 13. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off wireframe, default shading, and I'm probably just going to make it, let's say, 11. Great. So once I move this about here, we're going to get about the size that we need for it. So I'm just going to turn on wide mode. Going to rotate this forward. Turn on angle snaps first. Rotate this forward 90 degrees. That should be fine. Okay, I'm just going to press Ctrl X on this so I can see where I need these divisions. So I'm just going to turn up the segments slowly so I can get enough. Yeah, let's say around about here is perfect. So now I can just easily get rid of this. Just need to get it back for a sec so I know which ones it is. I might just keep it there for a second. Go to Edible Poly. Just gonna go on the select tool so I don't move anything around. I'm just going to grow this selection. And then I'm just going to delete. Now I know that is the size that I need. So if I just type into Google size, well actually the size of the people doesn't matter too much because we're going the size of the people changes. But we can just put it in here. The normal people size is around 2 to 4 millimeters in diameter in bright light to 4 to 8 in dark. So let's go with, if this is 12, or was it 13? Let's just go with, let's say, around halfway in between. Let's just go, let's say 5. So let's create another sphere. Let's go radius 5 millimeters. Oh, it was 11. Okay, let's go with 5 then. That might be a little bit too big. Let's go with 4. Just gonna move this forward. Rotate it 90 degrees. Then we've got a kind of idea. Gonna move it forward again. I'm just going to scale it like so. Scale it down so it creates like this kind of shape. Now let's move it kind of into place. Now I know that just trying to get the iris will generally curve inwards a little bit. So I'm just going to scale it down. and then move it in. Just say maybe not that convex or concave. Maybe we just want to kind of move this forward a tiny bit. Let's connect these. The sept. Let's chamfer that out. Okay, so that makes it a little bit more smooth, so we can work with it. So I might just scale this in a little bit. Okay, so now we've got a rough kind of area for our iris. Now I do want to kind of make this a lot less sharp, so what I can do is I can go in to chamfer after doing a ring and kind of soften this out a little bit. Maybe we can add another chamfer there, like so, just so we know that that's definitely the area there. And if we just turn off wireframe mode, you can see how this is looking so far. It's looking good. Okay, and then we've got our little pupil there. So now what I want to do really is I want to get rid of the triangles here, as they're going to cause problems. So what I want to do is replace the mesh with something else. So let's just move this forward. I'm going to create a box. I'm going to move it just around here. Actually, I can use the transform toolbox here to center the pivot so I can align it correctly. So I'm just going to choose center. I'm going to go to this one, choose center. Unhide all. I'm just going to use the align tool to align it to this, pivot to pivot. Going to scale it up. And I'm just going to start to turbo smooth this a little bit. Let's go for that many iterations, maybe there. Okay, let's scale it up. Scale it this way slightly. Scale it this way. Okay, that should be fine. Now we can get rid of that. Collapse 2. Edible poly. Okay, so now what I can do is I can go to my freeform, poly draw. I can choose draw on surface. I can pick the triangled surface. I can choose conform. And we can just conform this to the same shape. Just going around, conforming it. Now I can move this out of the way. Can delete this. And get this, and maybe just put a relax on it. By selecting all the polygons and going to relax. And that's just gonna maybe relax it out a little bit. Maybe it's fine. I think it's fine. So I'm just gonna go back on the y-axis and just move this back now, back into place with this. So about here I want it. Make it quite round. We could even scale it down a little bit if we like so. Make it a tiny bit less round. Okay, last step is we want to create another sphere. Keyboard entry. And if I remember correctly, this was 24, so let's just make this 25. And let's create. See how much bigger that is. Okay, that's a bit too big. I want it kind of over the surface. Now, I can easily delete the edge of this. For this one, it's going to be whole, so let me just hide this. Let me just go to the back here. And let's just get rid of these triangles. Just going to delete that. Doesn't matter so much that this is going to be like this. Now what I want to do is I want to unhide the other one. I want to do the same thing I did last time. So I want to create a box, keyboard entry. Let's just say 12, 12, and 12. Let's create. Doesn't really matter what you put in there. Going to center it. Now I'm going to scale it up. And I'm going to start turbo smoothing. Okay, before we do that completely, just wherever the iris is, let me just hide that out of the way for a second so we can see what's going on. Now what we want to do is we want to create the cornea. So the easiest way to do this is just select the part here and just choose soft selection. Till it kind of has this effect that when you pull it out, it's going to create a cornea effect. Obviously choosing the right vertex will help. Let's go to vertex mode. And then you're going to see it just have this kind of cornea effect. Maybe I want to make the fall off a tiny bit bigger, so it kind of curves into it. Yeah. Maybe we want a bit more of a bubble effect, kind of like this. Bit less of a pinch. Let's try it now. Bit more bubble. Okay. Let's move that forward. I don't like that bubble effect too much. Let's just try this again. Let's turn the fall off down. Maybe about here. That's much better. Okay, and we're going to create like a cornea effect. Also going to scale this out a little bit. The cornea is usually a bit bigger. So what I can do is I can change the fall off a little bit. Just kind of make this a tiny bit bigger. Maybe move it back a tiny bit. And I'm happy with that. So now I want to go to Edible Poly, make sure that that's right. And I want to put a turbo smooth on this. Actually, no, I do not. First, I want to unhide this. Hide unselected, so we just have these two areas. Want to collapse this, turn it into an edible poly. Select the faces that are most nearest to this. Okay, use soft selection. Let's just go fall off around here. Just going to move this forward a little bit just to give some help to the program to try and conform this. So now we can go back to our selection tool. Let's go to polydraw, draw on surface, and let's just draw on this. We want to draw on 0.2 if it's going to let us. Yes. Okay, so now we can use the conform. Use the control key to change the fall off, make the conform more, the strength, and then we can start to conform this. Go back maybe, and we can turn off that. Maybe use a little bit of a relax. Kind of relax it out a little bit. Go back to polydraw, conform. conform it back a little bit. And this is just a kind of repeating process that you'll have to do. Usually you don't have to do it too many times if you've got your conform quite a large number. Okay, so let's hide unselected. Let's see how this has turned out. That's quite smooth and I'm happy with it. So now we can delete the previous one. We can turn a transparency on this with the material editor. Wherever the material editor, here it is. I'm gonna have to move it over to this screen. Let's go to compact material editor. And let's make this completely opaque and place it on there. So this is going to be the reflection part of the mesh. Just going to change the colors a little bit here. This is going to be the white part of the eye and also the iris. And this is going to be the pupil. So, now that we've got all this, we can export it all out to ZBrush. So it says 3 objects selected. Okay, let's save this first. I'm just going to go to my desktop. Going to go to a new folder. Name it 3D Files. Went a bit wrong on the capitals there. 3D Files. I'm just going to name this Eye Creation. Now we want to export it so we can use it in 3ds Max. So let's export it as an OBJ. Let's go to Desktop, 3DSK, 3D Scan, Import, Export. So we can use this folder just to import and export things back and forth. So I'm going to name this Eye. ZBrush. Done. So before we move on, we need to do the unwrapping for this, so we don't have to do it later. So I'm just going to select the one underneath, the eyeball. I'm going to go to Unwrap Uv. I selected the one on top, so let's just do this one first then. Let's go off it for a sec. Just make sure you're not selecting any of the selection methods. Let's go to Planar Mapping. Change it around to the x-axis. Then you should see in the UV editor that it's done exactly what we want it to do. Just going to put it about here. That should do it just fine. But that is going to cause some problems at the back. But it should be fine for this one, as it's just a sphere. The only part that really matters is this area. But what we can do is we can split this up at the seam. So let me just do that. I just turn on wireframe mode. We can add a seam in here. I can go like this. Then I can go to pelt mapping, and we can just put a nice pelt on there. Same on this side. Pelt mapping, put a nice pelt on there. Then we can go here to pack UVs. Then we can pack these two nicely on top of each other. Okay, on to the next one. So now that that's done, let's hide that. Let's go to this one. Let's go Unwrap Uvw. Open UV editor. Keeps appearing on my left screen. And we can do some planar mapping on the different axes if it lets us. Let me just collapse this too. Make sure that I'm not selecting anything. May just have to do this the old-fashioned way. Selecting the center. Selecting the pelt. Go back to line mode. Select this, maybe this one. Let's make a line segment. Let's relax that. Let's do the same here and relax. And then what we can do is we can do the same thing as before, pack UVs, and then we can pack them together. Okay, now last but not least is this one. Go to Unwrap Uvw. Go to Open UV Editor. Flatten Mapping. And then we can easily just hide unselected. Let's create a proper seam this time. Select the rest. Oops. I just made a mistake. Not letting me select anything now because I've got box mode on. So let's just collapse that too. I have to do it again now because I accidentally clicked on box and it's going to create new seams. So let's open the UV editor. Let's go ahead to our line. Select this, loop, edge. Select this, select all the edges around. Pelt map. Easy peasy. On the other side, pelt map. And then we can just relax these out. Pack UVs, non-convex. Okay, unwrap. There's one thing I want to do. Not to this one, but to this one, is just make sure they are relaxed and they're not too out. Go to Unwrap Uv. I'll move this over again. Select all. Let's go to Relax Mapping. Here it is. See how that looks with a checker pattern? Maybe an edge angles would be better here. No, edge angles would not be better. Try the centers. Polygon angles is probably the best bet. So is this the front? Yes, this is the front. So that looks like it might work out quite well. Apart from obviously this area. But that should be fine. Just relax that down a little bit. Just because it's changing direction. It's going to kind of end up like this a little bit, but it shouldn't be a big deal. You can always just get this. Get more about the front and do a planar map of it. On the x-axis, and then that's going to give you kind of perfect squares from the front, but they're going to stretch out at the back. Then you can go back to your relax and kind of do it that way. But I think this way will probably give me the best result in the end. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Now I'm going to do the same with the other one. Okay, and then pack the UVs again. Okay, let's collapse that too. Unhide all. And now we can export it to 3ds Max again. To ZBrush. Go on Export Selected this time. And save it as I. So choose the preset ZBrush, and we can export that away. Now in the next episode, we're going to start placing the eye in ZBrush and doing the texture in there. So I'll see you in the next episode. Welcome to the end of this tutorial. Feel free to comment with feedback and suggestions below, and also comment on what you would like to see in future videos. Thanks and goodbye.